All right. Good morning to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, also co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And thanks so much for joining us wherever you are watching from. As you will know, every Saturday we try to get into the goings on in pop culture in the past week. And our show, known only as, or our segment each week, known as This Week in Pop Culture. And of course, I will not be alone in talking about the goings on in pop culture. So it was my pleasure to, welcome back to the show after a short hiatus, folks. Mr. Spillman Trueheart, what's going on, y'all?
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? How's it going? So happy to see you after another great week. We won't be talking about it, but man, that was a great concert on Juneteenth. If you checked it out, oh my, they was dancing, doing all kinds of silly stuff on Drake's grave. I loved it.
Wow. What a way to begin, folks. But yes, a lot has went down in the course of this week. So without further ado, let's dive right in. The first thing that I want to get into is, I guess you could say, the film and television pocket of the news cycle. And let me put it up here now. A couple of things went down this week. We had news that the Spaceballs sequel is in the works. We got a first look at the Game of Thrones spinoff known as A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, unveiling its first still, and then news, of course, of Will Smith joining the Resistor movie. Spillman, what are your thoughts on some of these news bits that we were provided some insight into over this week?
So I was a little bit the first. Well, let's start with the Spaceballs,
Yes,
because that
go
that
for it.
that that's up here big. At first, when I saw Spaceballs 2, I was like, Spaceballs 2, that movie came out 40 years ago. But then I saw that Josh Gad was involved in it, so I imagine that he's going to be taking over John Candy's character, perhaps, or maybe they'll do a new cast or something. Maybe they'll do something along the lines of A Force Awakens, and like get the old actors to be old in the movie. So it's like, okay, they're old now because time has passed. We know y'all ain't seen this movie in a long time, but that's interesting to me. I wonder where they're gonna go. Mel Brooks is getting up there, but he's still coming out with decent ideas. It's amazing that he's still able to to think at his age, to be able to be. I'm sure he's not doing the
Still
day
be
to day
sharp,
like you
yeah.
would, but to he's still an idea man for those things. So that's very interesting to me. I don't know. How do you feel about the Spaceballs?
So when it comes to Spaceballs, at for many folks, because I'm gonna age myself here. Spaceballs is only a year younger than me. It came out a year after I was born. So I kind of course, came onto the Spaceballs awareness late. Well, not late in that it was, of course, long after its release, and it was at that point in the circuit of, being on cable and being on VHS. Yes, VHS. I know another thing that's going to age me talking about VHS. I know some young folks out there like, what is VHS? But in, with all of that being said, it is a film that I enjoy a great deal. And for many folks, and just in the way that I'm describing it, it was a film that didn't really find its audience until after the fact, where it very much became developed a cult following. In regards to what you were saying, from what I understand, there haven't been any details exactly shared at this point in regards to like story details. So it will be interesting to see which way they take it. As you said, there, a lot of the actors, some of the actors that were a part of the original film are still around. So, it would be cool to see them come back and maybe continue the story and have it, just like, as you said, to kind of do a spoof of what we have with Force Awakens, where it's essentially the same film, and they can kind of play with that too.
I mean, that's what they did the last time.
Yeah, they can play with that too, of the idea of, yeah, this is basically the same story, except that we have characters a generation later. They can really do something really meta with
And they
that.
can also lean into the fact that the franchise has been bought out by a mega corporation now.
Very true.
And
Yes.
that could be very funny because, whenever we tongue in cheekly make fun of mega corporations owning things, that's always comedic gold.
Yes, very true, very true. So, no, I'm definitely interested to see, what they have in store, in terms of having the addition of Josh Gad, um, stuff that he's done, and the choices that he makes in terms of the projects that he does, are typically, quite intriguing and interesting. So, I'll be interested to see what he does with this franchise. But I will say, with it being a cult classic, it is a beloved, film. So that is a tricky proposition to try to do a sequel on something that is that beloved and revered as a spoof. So, which is why I'm also, I know we won't be probably won't be talking about it in this show, but the fact that we're also getting a Naked Gun film as well. While I am interested to see
R.I.P. OJ.
yeah, while I am interested, to see who they have, intrigued by who they do have attached to it, with Liam Neeson and the rest of that, the rest of the
And
folks.
OJ. And OJ. Don't forget OJ, Brandon. OJ was a co-star in that
I'm
movie.
talking about the remake, bro. I'm talking about the new updated one, not the
Yeah,
original.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
just
yeah,
saying,
yeah.
like, whenever you're touching something, and trying to redo a film that is revered in that way, it is a tricky um mountain to climb, to try to establish your own uh um uh I guess place within the fandom that surrounds that said, project. Because I feel like it's the same way even with the Thing, and I love the Thing. The 80s John Carpenter's The Thing, still holds up to this day, even years later. And uh, while the prequel was okay, I do feel like it still doesn't stand up to the original film. So, um, now that being said, getting into the what is it? The prequel series for Dance of the not Dance of the Dragon. I'm sorry, House of the Dragon is this a project that we have, a Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Now, in terms of setting, from what I understand, and this is based off of the the synopsis that they provide on that you can find on IMDb. And let me put it up here. And the picture that we have up there is there, up there on the top left with the gentleman there, is a century before Game of Thrones. Sir Duncan the Tall and his squire Egg wander through Westeros while the Targaryen dynasty ruled the Iron Throne and dragons were still remembered. Great destinies and enemies await the incomparable friends. So that tells me a couple of things. One, while we have House of the Dragon, playing out right now, and we're having the infighting that's playing out, with the Targaryens, with the Greens, with the Blacks, and the dragons that they commandeer, we're going to have this additional story as well that will provide, further insight into that world of Game of Thrones, which will be cool. My only concern with it is, if we're going to be doing a show like this, it would have made more sense to wait a little longer, because if this is based off of how it's being described in the synopsis, the dragons are no longer around, or at least based off of what it's saying, where it's saying dragons were still remembered. That makes me believe that yes, the Targaryens are on the throne, but it's after that, following the aftermath of all of their infighting, where many of the dragons are all gone. So it would make more sense that you're doing a show like this as House of the Dragon is wrapping up versus when we're just starting to get into the infighting with them and their dragons. But we'll see. Maybe they're able to pull it off, or maybe I could be wrong. Maybe there still are some dragons around, and they're still able to find a way to kind of have it all meshed together. I just feel like if we're doing a huge IP like that, that's recognizable, you don't want to mix things up for your audience of, okay, where does this fall? Like, um if we're having both shows coming on within a given year, it can throw people off sometimes if they're saying, okay, well, we have this prequel series of what's happening right now I have to, picture the same thing happening nearly 100 years later with the same story. It would have made more sense if now you're, promoting this and you're timing it in a way where it's coming out as House of the Dragon is supposed to wrap up. Because from what I understand, they're trying to do, believe like 4 or 5 seasons of House of the Dragon. And right now we're still only in season 2. There's a lot that still needs to happen for us to get to the point where some of those dragons are out of the picture. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
To steal a phrase from Spaceball, we could call this House of Dragons 3 the quest for more money. Like, I feel like
No doubt, no doubt.
we said this about House of Dragons in the first place, but now we're saying, we don't even want to come to a conclusion with this one. We want to make sure we get those eyeballs and those
I have
dollars.
no problem with the conclusion. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I'll give you another example of it. We have Walking Dead, right? We have the quote unquote Walking Dead universe that now has been coined or phrased that has now become a thing. Wouldn't it have been weird to do? And I don't know if you've seen some of the spinoff series, Spillman, but wouldn't it have been weird to do Dead City or the Dixon Show while we still have a whole couple of seasons left of the original Walking Dead? That's
I agree with you 100%. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying this is just a money grab. They're saying we don't know how much longer they're going to be in Westeros.
It is, but just have it make sense and have it, not disjointed and confuse the very audience that you're trying to have buy in to your show.
I feel like also this is the application of things, and they need to have a selling point on these apps because, when you have an app, like people, like I know people like, I'll give the perfect example of the application of things. People only buy the Stars app when Power was on. Any other time, because what else is there to watch on that network? I'm not watching anything else but Power. So to combat that, when Power ended, they had 4 shows that were Power spinoffs that were running. So they could be like, all right, y'all have to watch all these Power shows so that we can get your money and you can keep your eyeballs here. And I think this is very similar. That they took that same model where, okay, this popular show ended and it drove our subscribers, and we need to keep those subscribers going. So if we put out a show every week, then a new show all year instead of having shows with seasons and stuff and having different things going on, that's how you make your money. So I think that's just, more of the same. I think that they were really innovative with Stars when they did that because, like I said, people like, if you're not watching Power, there's nothing else on Stars to watch. Like no offense.
I mean, there was some stuff.
We're talking about today. We talking about today.
Yeah,
we're not talking about when it was on cable. Like when Stars was on cable, it was a different animal. But since everything's gone amplified, it's just reruns of old movies and stuff. And nobody needs to pay to watch old movies anymore. That's not a big draw like it was in the 90s. Because we got the internet. You can find that movie on YouTube or some other streaming site at low cost. So I think that that's really what it is they're trying to drive it. And I think it looks cool. It looks very cool. I mean, who don't want to see people with swords fighting dragons? That's very cool. That's a cool concept. So I get it, but it's just it's the front. It's the C-suite making ideas and not like the creatives, and that always feels a little icky to me.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, as I said, I completely understand the idea of, generating more revenue out of a given IP. It is show business. So like, all that part is understood. But if it is going to be a business, in terms of the business model that you have, you don't want to have something that will disrupt the momentum. And right now, House of the Dragon has some great momentum, especially, now that it just started and we had, that first episode and how it, ended. And I mean, I'm not going to spoil it, but I mean, if people have read the books, they're familiar with what goes down when two characters with known as Blood and Cheese decide to are hired to retaliate against the Greens, and what goes down with that. But you have some great momentum with this current show. At one point, I feel like there was, when the show was first coming about in that first season, there was some skepticism, myself included, where I was like, okay, we're doing a prequel series again with the prequels, right? Doing a prequel series of a well-known IP. I hope they're able to recapture, what made Game of Thrones great, because, the original series I felt lost some steam, towards the end of it. It was terrific in the beginning and in the middle of its run. And then I feel like in those last couple of seasons, it kind of, lost steam. So will we see that same momentum, that same issue going into this new series? And knock on wood, the first season was solid. And, from what we've seen just in the first episode, this season promises to be very, really good too. So we'll see. We have this, like I said, this extra series, this additional series on the way. It just seems kind of early to introduce yet another spinoff, when right now we're still in the spinoff, in a prequel series as it stands.
And it
So
doesn't feel like they wrote them together. At least with the power thing, they were like, all right, we're going to do 4 of these, and they're going to take different POVs. And if you want to keep up with one, it's a POV for this one or another one. It seems like they're just like,
I want to say, and this is another show that I will recommend. And to your credit of what you're saying, is another show that I would recommend, and I don't know if they'll ever get an additional season, would be Narcos. Like, Narcos was interesting because you had a lot of characters of where they in essence created a universe all their own with their show. You had a lot of actors who played well-known figures in the, crime community, or the crime in those crime organizations, and you had the same actors playing those roles. And even across different shows, when you're, jumping forward and back in time of things that were transpiring during that time, just as you said, from different perspectives, because it's with different, crime organizations, you still had those same actors pop up, even in examples where, like, maybe you had a prequel series where that character maybe passed away last season or was taken out last season. They would make an appearance in the prequel series because at that time, setting wise, they would have still been around. So like, it was cool in how they very much almost made a MCU-esque version of, like, criminal organizations, and like the actors that they had, where there was consistency with the actors playing those same roles throughout all the seasons of Narcos thus far.
yeah, the Colombians was in Mexico, and the Mexicans somehow we made it to Colombia. They was all over the place. It definitely made sense that way. I agree.
And then, I mean, you had in instances where, like, in the initial shows, those characters, maybe you had some characters that maybe popped up in a small capacity, and then in latter shows, when they focus specifically on that organization or that crime family, you had that actor pop up again. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But the last of these, we have the Will Smith joining Resistors film. What are your thoughts on that?
Obviously Will Smith is box office, as a clean cut guy who don't curse too much. I'm a big Will Smith fan. So yeah, I like Will. I'd like I was kind of afraid that they were going to end his career because he stood up for his woman, and they were trying to say bad on him, even though we all know protect the women. That's what we say. You can't just be talking all crazy, especially to my lady when I'm sitting right here. Don't do that. Don't do that. But I'm interested in it. I can't wait to see what they do with that. I read the article, but I wait to see the visual of a movie before I start saying it. This podcast specifically, we say we read the stuff, but I don't read the stuff, ladies and gentlemen. I wait for the YouTube version. I like the YouTube version of these things, so I'm interested in it. We'll see. It seems like it's a good action movie, which is in his wheelhouse. Um, just so long as he's not doing slapstick, I think he'll be fine. You turned your mic off. We can't hear you. Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, yeah. So I'll keep going till Brandon's back. But Will Smith, he's great. He just came out with Bad Boys 4, which has been killing in the box office. People do like them Bad Boys movies, and he is the king of summer. I don't care what it says. There hasn't been a king of summer since Will Smith was the king of summer. Nobody comes out and drops new heat like Willard Smith the junior does. Nobody has. So to me, I just feel like he's the GOAT to me, low key. I don't there's lots of actors, Denzel, other things, but to me, who get me to go to the movie, pay that $8.95 or $15 depending, is Will Smith, especially in the summertime. So how do you feel about it? Oh, we're still muted. Is it the mic?
Let's see. How about
Okay, there you
now?
go. There you go. There you go. There you
Okay.
go.
All right. So no, I guess what I was saying is that and speaking of the film, and just to give a little background of the project in and of itself, Resistor is actually going to be is based on a book, Influx, by best-selling author Daniel Suarez. And it is an interesting concept of what it deals with, but in essence, it's a sci-fi thriller that follows a physicist named John Grady and his team, who have discovered that a device can reflect gravity. So when we're talking about a lot of these films that Will Smith has done in his career, it very much reminds me of kind of that those it reminds me of those films that he was doing in the early 2000s. A lot of those types of films where we're talking about like our iRobots. We're talking about,
I Am Legend.
yeah, where we have a lot of those films where they're very much sci-fi actioners. And in the past, with a lot of those films, those have been his bread and butter, post, what is it? Wild Wild West, and how that very much became a debacle of at the box office, not necessarily with the music, but with the film. So I'm very much looking forward to what is in store, and then also just in general, you know, happy to see that he is, back in the driver's seat, so to speak, with, his career. Um, Post, and this is thanks in large part to what happened with the latest Bad Boys. Of course, the latest Bad Boys is doing very well at the box office. So that's, kind of help revitalize his career, and, studios being willing to, work with him again. Uh, and this is in regards to, of course, as you mentioned with the incident that happened at the Oscars. While it is something that isn't something that you want to see in terms of what caused Smith to lash out at Rock. um it At the end of the day, it is in terms of the response that was given. I feel like is not necessarily people having an issue with him defending, his wife, but just how it was executed or how it was done that people have issue with, which I also agree with. So I'm glad he was able to get that behind him. And at the end of the day, as I said, is very much show business. So many times, if you can still show that that you can get folks in those seats at the movie theaters, especially these days, as expensive as a movie theater going to the movies is these days versus what it was in the past. A lot of studios are willing to look past any things that may have happened in the past, as long as I guess demonstrate that you are sorry and have made the appropriate amends. They're willing to give you another shot. We see it all the time where in the entertainment business, you have uh, actors or directors or whoever making films um, get a second shot, if they're willing to, demonstrate uh, uh, acceptance of what those transgressions were, and that they're able to move on from them. Because in Hollywood, they love that story of what is it of what's the word that I'm looking for, of
Redemption.
redemption. Yes, yes. Because another example that I think of that is with James Gunn and that whole situation that he had, initially with uh, being let go by Marvel and then coming back to do the final what is it final Guardians film before of course hitting over to DC. But do you have any last thoughts before we move on to our next story?
No, just again, Will Smith is box office. You know, he's a cultural zeitgeist, and in Hollywood, unless you do something that will make people stop coming to see you, they gonna come see you. So I'm excited to see what he does with this. It seems like it's in his wheelhouse. So yeah.
Cool, cool. All right. So I wanted to get into, and this is, uh, sorry, a little bit of a downer, but wanted to be able to address it, and that is surrounding Donald Sutherland. Over this past week, news broke that he had passed away. Of course, if you know Donald Sutherland, he is a legend in the industry with all the various roles and parts that he has done over his 60 crazy 60 over 60-year career, 60-plus-year career. And this is in films such as MASH and Ordinary People, The Hunger Games. I mean, I can go into other ones because I'm a horror guy. So Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The spirit. I always call it the spiritual remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You have the Puppet Masters, another fun horror film. But he's also been in other flicks too, because another film that comes to mind, and even though he's only in it briefly, his character has impact on the film going forward, and that's the Italian Job. A lot of people forget that he was in Italian Job. So uh uh Spillman, your thoughts on Donald Sutherland passing away this week?
First and foremost, shout out to the Sutherland family.
Yes.
Obviously Kiefer, his son who famously was on 24. I'm sure he's going through it, but
Lost Boys.
um,
I mean, I can go over a whole
yeah,
bunch of those with
a
his son
whole bunch
too.
of things. Yes. But a Hollywood lifer for sure. I think he's been um in Hollywood as long as as long as we've been alive, but also longer than that. I think he's our family's our parents' generation
Yeah,
of superstars.
for sure.
Um, so so many things. I think of some of the things that he's not more heralded for. Like I always remember he was um Phil Knight in the Prefontaine HBO movie. a classic thing. I don't know why that just sticks out in my head as one of his big performances. He's done a lot of other things. He's done a lot of sports movies. He's done a lot of movies. He's just a guy that be doing. He's always been booked and busy, as they say. He's always had work to do. So, big loss for him to pass, but a very storied career, great movies, all kinds of stuff that he was just a part of. So
And I was gonna say it's crazy to think that, in terms of what he's done, in his what he's done in his career is he's never won, from what I understand, a competitive Oscar. He did, 7 years ago, did receive an honorary one. But in terms of, being able to compete for an Oscar, based off of a role that he has, portrayed over the course of his, illustrious career, he didn't, win one, which is, crazy to think about in thinking of all the iconic roles that he has had over the course of his career. So, again, condolences, to his friends and his family. But I wanted to give a shout out to Donald Sutherland and unfortunate, passing this past week. So, all right. So getting into the sports of it all, because we did have quite a few things that happened in the world of sports, and I have a feeling that one of these particular talking points is going to be something that's really going to grind Spielman's gears.
It's not going to be the one you think it is. Also, it's not going to be the one you think it is, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, we'll see. So scrolling down here and getting into some of the news bits with our sports. Of course, this week we did have some changes in regards to coaches in the world of the NBA. Just going down the line, we had JJ Redick officially being hired as the Lakers head coach. We had Monty Williams let go as the Pistons head coach, seen above, and then Jeff Van Gundy, legendary Jeff Van Gundy,
NBA champion Jeff Van Gundy,
being hired as the Clippers assistant coach, and of course, the Celtics winning their 18th NBA championship. So, Spielman, I feel let's do this. I know I have JJ listed first, but let's switch it around a bit. Let's talk.
Let's start with Monty. Yeah, let's start with Monty.
Let's talk Monty first, and then we get into Jeff Van Gundy and leave Redick and Celtics for last. How about that? So, getting into fine. Monty, what are your thoughts on him being let go as the Pistons coach?
I feel like you have to let somebody like Monty go, unfortunately. If you set a record for the most losses in a season ever, that kind of that's a bullet point on a resume that you would never put on a resume. You would never put that on your CV. Be like, by the way, I did lose the most games in NBA history.
Right. Yeah.
But 65 big ones is a great consolation prize. I ain't never had no job where they fired me for gross incompetence.
Bought out, and you have
and I got to keep all that money. That's just amazing.
If memory serves, because I remember seeing this, he still has the buyout from his prior contract.
He probably does. He
still has the buyout from the prior contract, the team before.
So I'm sure.
Don't cry, money is money. He got let go.
I'm not gonna cry for him at all. Yeah. And it felt like they was losing them games on purpose at a point. Because losing 27 games in a row, you gotta kind of work at it. You can't just lose 27 games in a row. Because they were saying he needed to put Jaden Ivey in the game. Like, the people on the internet were saying, "Hey, you're not playing this guy that's clearly better than this other guy enough," and they didn't. So I think they were trying to get those golf balls, as they say, to get ping pong balls rather, get a better chance at a number one pick. But this was not the year to do it. There is no clear-cut top of the draft big splashy pick that's going to save that franchise. So I get why they fired him. He didn't seem to have any control over the team. They lost 27 games. 27 games is crazy to lose. And it was a time where the Wizards was losing as much, and I was making fun of my Wizards friends, but we don't have any Wizards friends on this podcast, so we're not going to talk bad about the people who make poor life decisions. But again, you can't lose 27 games. Like I always talk to my sister about things like this. She was like, well, he tried. Why did they fire him? And I'd be like, you can't have a stat like that. That's like, you were a principal and 27 students, like you didn't meet your goal 27 times in a row. You can't do that to keep any job. To get to 27 is crazy.
You have a admission rate, or to say a graduation rate of 27%.
Yes, 27%. That's abysmal. No, you're not gonna keep this job. Like, you just can't. We love you, Monty. The stories of him taking care of all his kids after his wife passed are very heartwarming and stuff, and that's great. But that's not what we're paying you for. We're not paying you for that. I guess, again, what would you do with $65 million that you did not earn?
Well, here's the thing. I feel like it's kind of strong to say that it's $65 million that I didn't earn, because at the end of the day, hear me out. At the end of the day, when we're talking about the $65 million, we're talking about just the overall contract in general. It is something that is based on potential, right? He was paid that amount of money based on what he had done before with his prior team. So there was already an understanding.
He also was the highest paid coach in the history of the NBA.
He was. But I'm just saying, it wasn't based on, okay, we're going to do this, or we're going to accomplish this. It was based off of, okay, we saw what you did with your prior team. We saw what you were able to accomplish with your prior team. We want you to bring that same, that same energy and that same know-how over to our team. And we're willing to pay premium in order to, show you that we want you bad enough at this team to be able to bring those same qualities to this team. So it's hard for me to say he didn't earn a $65 million when the $65 million was paid. The $65 million was paid, let's be honest, on potential, not what he was going to do. It'd be one thing if, he was already, coaching for that team and maybe he got an extension, right? But, there was no guarantee that he was going to be able to turn that around with what they had to work with. And it's not really, and I know it's still not an excuse for Monty, because as you said, they set a record for the number of games that they lost. But
record.
And, all the components of that. While I do feel like he has a hand in in the blame for that, because he still has to motivate the players. The players still have to go on the court and be professionals and play. But as a coach, you still want to be able to motivate, your team and your players to be able to put effort out there, game after game. Even when you may not be the most talented team, just effort a lot of times will be enough to at least make you decent, even if you may not be a great team. So
14 and 68 last year.
Yeah, I know. So as
I feel
said,
like I could coach an NBA team to 14 wins.
As I said, I don't feel like he's completely exempt, but at the same time, I do understand the circumstances that were also at play that also make it difficult to be able to coach that team. So, again, I'm not going to cry him a river. He has the buyout of his contract and he's still, leaving home with that. So hopefully, he's providing an opportunity going if whatever team he decides to move on to next, that, he is able to make the most of, that said opportunity, and can kind of, I guess, not forget, the time that he was at the Pistons, but at least use it as a learning experience going forward. Because I feel like
you can't forget $65 million that you ran off on the plug with. You can't forget that. He will tell that story. People will be like, "Hey, Monty,
the team
come on down."
End of the day, they paid premium to get him as a coach. So that's kind of That's kind of the hole they dug themselves in. So, but moving on from that, because I wanted to get into Jeff Van Gundy too, because Jeff Van Gundy is no slouch when it comes to coaching. So it's very interesting prospect of him being hired as the lead assistant coach when he's fully capable of being a head coach. So
This is a warning. I think this is a warning to Ty Lue,
Ty
because
Lue, yeah, where like if
we
you don't get
said
the job done,
earlier, yeah,
he's gonna come and take it over.
I feel like Ty Lue, if they're going to let him go, he'll be gone by the All-Star break. I feel like
So you
if
think you feel like this is their insurance policy based off of the recent contract that they gave him, because he did get an
yeah,
extension.
he got an extension, sure, but you just saw they don't care about extensions, and we're not talking about the owner of the Pistons. We talking about the man that partially owns Microsoft. Ballmer got money out of everything. He got money coming out of everywhere. This platform we talking on, he might get some change off of this because it's probably built on a Windows platform. So to me, this is a hey man, bring me in the lefty. I need a reliever. So they're just waiting to see what Ty Lue does this next year, because they started off kind of rocky last year. They didn't make it past the first round this year. I believe they lost to the eventual Western Conference champion, but that team was not better. The Western Conference champion was not that much better than the team that the Clippers put out there on paper. If you look at it, Kyrie and Luka versus those three MVP
Oh, no doubt. I mean,
candidates
they demonstrated in the first
and
game.
Paul George, yeah, it's
They
like
demonstrated in the first game what they were
there's no
capable
way they should have. That's why I'm even surprised that Ty Lue still has a job, but they paid Ty Lue. But clearly they're saying that.
So here's my thought. But first I want to get in for those that may be,
Our younger
unfamiliar with
viewers.
Jeff Van Gundy. I want to,
Our
give
younger
a
viewers.
breakdown of what Van Gundy has accomplished, and Van Gundy being there on the bottom left. He started his coaching career, of course, with the 95, 96 season New York Knicks. I mean, that's where I'm sure many of us, recognize or remember Van Gundy for his run there. As I say, he started his career with them in the 95, 96 season. But in that time with the Knicks, he had accumulated 285 wins. This is including with the playoffs, and had a trip to the 1999 NBA Finals in that stint with the Knicks. He, in 2003, he went on to coach the Houston Rockets, replacing, Rudy T. And, just to go a step further, just in terms of his overall body of work, he has won more than 400 games. So 430 games. He has a record of 430 and 430 versus 318 losses in a regular season, and has more than 40 playoff wins. And in going into a bit more in terms of his appearances in the playoffs, is tied, fifth among coaches within the period of 1996 to 2007. So he's done a little bit, and just to give you, a weird synergy, right? If memory serves, his brother Stan Van Gundy coached our LA Lakers current head coach, which you're about to dive into. But yeah, like what again? I know you say you wanted to get into a little bit more with Van Gundy. What were you about to say?
Yeah, I just think I think Jeff is an old school coach. He's been to conference finals. He's been to NBA finals. I feel like he's done it all. He's gotten through different things like getting into beefs with people and stuff. And I think that he's the kind of coach that you would need to manage the kind of personalities they have for the Clippers. So I think it's a good hire. But also, I think this is like when it's like when you at a job and they start hiring a bunch of consultants and they be like, hey, you don't have to do this anymore. The consultant will do it. That's when you start looking at that resume and be like, all right, I'm gonna put this in the chat GPT. I'm gonna get it optimized for search engine optimization because they about to let me go. I know what it is. It's like when your girlfriend all of a sudden starts working out. You're like, why you start working out again, baby? Because I'm
Wow.
about to break up
Wow.
with you, sir. I'm about to
Wow.
break up with you.
Wow.
That's right.
Wow. It's getting real deep. It's getting
It's
real
getting
deep.
deep
But
and
no,
sad,
that's
ladies and
an
gentlemen. But yeah,
interesting point,
totally.
because like it just, like I said, it just struck me as weird that he is getting hired as an assistant coach when you have someone who is fully capable of taking over the reins as a head coach. But that is an interesting perspective of perhaps they have him there. They're saying, oh, he's the lead assistant coach to provide support for Tyronn
Mm-hmm.
Lue, when
Sure.
it's a little ploy there to put a little fire under
Sure.
Lue to say, hey, look, man, like if you can't get it done, we have Van Gundy waiting right here in the wings. We don't
We got
have
a
to.
Hall of
We don't
Famer
have to
right
do. Hey,
here.
look, we don't have to do any extensive coach search, which we're about to get into in a minute. We don't have to do an extensive coach search. We already can hire in-house, already ready to go as soon as you go. So, um, but yeah, no, that's an interesting point. So, getting into the JJ Riddick of it all, Mr. Spillman, what are your thoughts on having a guy who has not coached at the NBA level, has not gone through the process like we have, have as we have, been mentioning with our prior coach with Van Gundy, of being an assistant. A lot of times, you're an assistant coach, for a good little while. You may be a part of the assistant coaching group, maybe not the lead assistant coach, and then you get promoted to the lead assistant coach, and then you get the opportunity for the head coaching job. What are your thoughts on him just skipping that entire process and hopping right into the head coaching chair? What do you think his ceiling is?
Well, I will say that he does have prior experience as a head coach. He was the volunteer fourth grade head basketball
Stop,
coach at Brooklyn
stop it,
Basketball Academy
stop it,
last year. This last
stop
year,
it,
he was doing big
stop it,
things for
stop
the
it, bro.
fourth graders. He's
Stop
teaching the fundamentals
Stop it,
of the
bro.
game.
Stop it.
The fundamentals of the game.
Stop what you doing, man.
And
Stop
I will say
it.
that I'm not really that mad at this hire because the most important thing is that
Just make
LeBron likes
everybody
him.
happy.
That's the most important thing. This is the NBA. This is not the NFL. We don't. The NBA don't hire people based on like, oh, they got a good background. They know what they're doing. That's not what they hire. They be like, is the best player going to like you? Because if not, we can get you up out of here. Look at Monty. They said we don't care about $65 million. You get up out of here. But they like JJ. LeBron has buy-in from him. He seems a little bit young for Jeannie Buss, so that may be good. I think we won't have to worry about that.
Bro.
Um,
Bro,
so
that is a loaded statement.
I
That-
mean, he's a little. I mean, Jeannie likes a silver fox. She likes a distinguished gentleman. And while JJ did go to Duke, I feel like he's a bit. He's out of her range a little bit. I think that JJ might still have children in the house, and I don't think that she likes people with children in the house.
wow.
So I think it's an okay hire. I really didn't think, but I do think that this means that we for sure are going to try to draft Bronny, which will frustrate me to no end. But they want to keep LeBron in town, and the Lakers do stuff for stars. That's just what we do. I don't really have a problem with this. He was the head coach of no, I'm sorry, the volunteer coach for the Brooklyn Basketball Academy. So, you can't go wrong with that kind of experience, man. If you could teach the game to youngsters, you could teach it to
I'll
professionals.
say this. In the time that he has, been a commentator for he's been an analyst commentator for ESPN, and has, talked about games and broken down games and schemes and things like that. I believe that he has a pretty good, basketball mind. Like he knows his stuff. But at the same time, there is more to coaching than knowing schemes and being able to break the game down. As you said, he does have a rapport with LeBron, so that is saying something. Because you need to have a rapport with your players, but um, at the same time, you don't want it to be a situation where you're and this has been mentioned before, so I can't take credit for mentioning this, but I do agree with uh it being explained when it was discussed, and that's just the idea of where's the message coming from. Is the message coming from the coach? Is the message coming from LeBron? If players are being told certain things and provided information on certain things, who is really the coach? And that provides a weird dynamic to that team. It provides a weird dynamic to the locker room when you really can't make a distinction between your star player and your head coach, and where the
I
kind of
disagree with that. I
where the
disagree
line
with that
is drawn.
totally. I feel like you've played on enough teams to know that the best player is supposed to be the coach on the floor, and they're supposed to have a synergistic link up like this. And I
Yes.
think that because honestly, we don't think LeBron and them is going to win a championship next year. We don't
Oh
think they're
no,
going to win it.
definitely not.
We for
Definitely
sure
not. I'm
don't think
glad you're
the
objective about
season
that.
after this
Absolutely
one.
not.
We don't think even if LeBron's in the league the season after this one, we don't think he's going to win a championship. So
Absolutely
I
not.
think that
Now, if he moves to another team, that might be a different story. We might have a
well, he
different
can't move to
conversation.
another team.
But
I
he has
get
too
that, but that's a
much.
pipe dream. I
He
don't
has
think that
too
he
much
can.
in LA. He has too many business ventures in LA to drop shop and leave for another town, another city. So
Yeah, I just don't see it. I just think I know that it's funny to be like, "Ooh, LeBron got his guy," da da da, and that's great for internet ha-has. I love that. But this is the NBA. That's what NBA players do. If you are someone on LeBron's level, you get to pick your daggone coach. And the last thing he wanted was some college coach screaming at him, and then maybe telling his son is not good. His son don't need to hear that. You wouldn't want that. Your son out there playing, and the new coach, because he's a hot shot from Connecticut, want to tell you what to do. That's a woman's school. I won't.
let me ask you this, to your point of you saying that. If would you rather have someone who, while still has the respect of LeBron, is still able to establish a culture for your team that is not only sustainable in the time that LeBron is there, but is also sustainable
Uh oh. Can you hear me, Brandon? Can you hear me? Uh oh. Um, I think to sum up what he was saying, he might have got a phone call or something. Um, he's still here. He's still here. Okay. I would say that LeBron. I would rather at this point, looking at what the team is now for the Lakers. I feel like because LeBron is at the point he is in his career where he's not going to be making a team a championship contender because he can't anymore. He's just too old to make it a championship contender. Um, I don't think that I would want to have a coach to maybe I would want one to set a system, like a system kind of coach, and maybe the UConn coach, Danny Hurley, is that, but I don't think so. Historically, college coaches coming in and being good at the NBA their first go round is not a thing that happens in the NBA. It's just not. It's a hard jump to make. Most of the most successful coaches we've ever had are not from college because the college game is different in the fact that they're amateurs versus the NBA. Famously, John Calipari didn't do well in the NBA. Joe Paterno famously, I was afraid of a Joe Paterno situation with the Lakers if we hired Hurley, because it's hard to move from college where you're in control of everything. AD is there, but the AD doesn't pick your players. Um, I don't think that I would. I understand the idea of having a guy with a plan for the future, but where LeBron is in his career, that's not something that's like what we need. And I don't think that they signed him to a 4-year contract. There's no way he's going to go through a 4-year contract with LeBron at the end of the contract. I don't see LeBron playing 4 more seasons in the NBA. That would be the craziest. Like, if LeBron played 4 more seasons in the NBA, he would for sure be the GOAT, because no one's played 25 seasons in the NBA. That's some hockey stuff. So, yeah, I prefer it this way. Get a coach that's not going to be messing with stuff. You got to try to get the most out of LeBron and AD at this point. I've been hearing some rumors about some trades we're going to make, but we'll see if those trades actually happen.
For sure. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you good.
All right, perfect. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Had a slight technical difficulty, but I guess what I was getting into is, I get what you're saying with, hiring Hurley, but I also understand the thought process in that too, in that you want to have someone who is able to establish a culture, who's able to establish some successful habits and some successful momentum, not just when LeBron is there, but also as he is, as you said, leaving the team. Because we've seen it time and time again where, whether it's LeBron, whether it's any other player following a huge run or era in which they were playing for that team, of them having those developmental years or those rebuilding years, and those are like very tough years to be able to navigate through. So what better person to have than to have someone who has had already established success at the highest levels, and
But
has
that doesn't
won
really
titles.
happen in the NBA, though. Like, you can't tell me of a coach who was a coach with a great team who then transitioned to the next level of that team. Like, it just doesn't happen, because it's just like, even with the Bulls in the 90s, like when Michael Jordan left, they were kind of like, yo, like, we not the Bulls no more. We need you to do a little bit more, Mike. We actually need Michael Jordan back here. Like, if you look at the Last Dance, they were talking, like, Mike had to tell them, hey man, y'all didn't win these championships with us. Like, stop acting like you did. So I just, it's just one of those things. Get the coach that works for now, because what's it happening in the future, it usually is not like, set in stone that it's always the same thing. So to me, get the coach that the best player likes, keep him here, because if LeBron leaves, we're going to be the Pistons. We're going to win 15 games, and I don't want to see that.
No, I hear you. I hear you. So I guess the other part of that I wanted to be able to get into is what we have with the Boston. Make sure the Boston Celtics.
Boo! This is what I'm upset about. I don't care about no JJ Redick. Who cares who the head coach
To be
is?
fair, you were right. You had them winning, because I for sure thought we were going to have a series, and we didn't.
No, there was no series. I told you that when we seen it. That they won 65 games, man. And they would have won game 4 had they said, you know what? No, we want to win in front of the fans. We want to win in front of the fans, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, no, this was over before they started, before tip-off game 1. Unfortunately, that leprechaun, somehow they got to get a 7'5" guy that can stretch the floor with his jump shot and block shots as well, competently. Al Horford's ghost, you said Al Horford was washed up, but they didn't have no answer for him, because them young boys don't know how to handle a real big man. So to me, it was just over. And then they were doing that 2 thing with White and Holiday, where they were just they made Kyrie Irving's life heck. So to me, it was a done deal. I don't, I like that people wanted Kyrie to win, and that would have been great for his legacy. But you can't stop a truck in the middle of the street. You're gonna get run over. So I don't know. How do you feel about it? Uh-oh. So yeah. Anyway, again, boo to the Boston Celtics. Um, I'm really upset also that they happened to somehow win championships in 2008 and in 2024, so they could steal both the Kobe numbers from us. I'm really upset about that. I'm upset that you know Jalen Brown won the uh, Finals MVP when really anybody could because they were all just equally good. Everybody was good. They played team basketball in perfect Celtics fashion. They were doing high pick and rolls and back cuts and all kinds of stuff. They had a plucky guy shooting a bunch of crazy jumpers from half court just cause. It just really was frustrating to me on all different levels. I'm really upset that the Celtics have won another championship. They've gone in front of us. Unfortunately, we lost Jerry West last week, but he knew they was going to win, so he got up out of here, as I should have too. I should have said, you know what? I'm done. I can't continue to see these people win. And that's what he said. He said, I've seen too many of these green championships and these leprechauns and stuff. I don't want to continue to do this. The Lakers have hired some new plucky coach that they'll probably tell me I can't talk to. So I don't want to be here no more. I heard some terrible things about the way they treated Jerry on his way out. So, I'm just upset. But forget the Celtics. I'm really, really upset about this. How do you feel?
Wow, wow, that was unexpected. I didn't expect you to have that type of reaction to them winning. But I will say this: good on Jason Tatum and on Jalen Brown of getting their first title. I know for a couple of years, it's funny to think about that they were talking about breaking them up at one point. And so to finally, I know it has to be satisfying for them to finally prove the naysayers wrong, because if you know if things had gone a different way, this championship wouldn't have never happened, because they were talking about breaking up Brown and breaking up Brown and Tatum. Yeah, yeah. So I guess for me, it's great to be able to have a team with the players that you have on it in those lineups that are probably have, 3 or 4 more, great years in them. A lot of them, in the context of being NBA players, are still in the primes of their careers. You have players that are in their 20s, and you have players that are still under contract. A lot of times what you see when you're coming across some of these teams is that, maybe you have a player that's on the tail end of their prime. Maybe they are wrapping up a current contract that they have, just, as luck would have it, as they are winning a championship. So they have, a lot of negotiating power to, get a huge contract extension. And while that may be the case with maybe with only a few of their players, I believe White is in that type of situation. For the most part, most of their crew are already tied up in a current contract as it stands, and not only are they already tied up in a contract, they aren't, in the
It's not the
context of being,
last year.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm saying in the context of being an NBA player, they're still in their primes. So that is a scary, a scary proposition. I'm sure for a lot of other teams that's where this team stands. But at the same time, and I mentioned this on prior shows, is that there are other teams out there that were hampered this year, whether it was with injuries or just with other circumstances, that prevented them from playing at their maximum. So, while I'm happy for the team, I'm still a little skeptical that they will repeat because you still have Denver out there. You still have the Grizzlies that didn't have Ja this year. That they're going to have him come next year. You still have Oklahoma City, which I think a lot of people are sleeping on. I know that they had a disappointing postseason, but they just made a trade for Caruso, which is
That was a big pickup. I
a
think.
lot
I
of
think
people are
that that
sleep. A lot of people are sleeping on that, but that's going to be huge. And
that's going to be huge.
in the same way that Porzingis was a huge, addition for the Celtics this year, and I feel people slept on it a little bit. I feel that's going to be the same way with Caruso with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think a lot of people are not putting enough interest into that move. That's really going to be huge. When we look back on it, it's going to be huge. So those are just three teams I talked about. So like I said, you have Oklahoma City Thunder, you have the Nuggets, and you have the Grizzlies. I didn't even get into the
The
Timberwolves.
Lakers, that's right. We can still maybe win a championship if we make that trade for Trae Young, like they said we was going to do. They said we was going to trade Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura for Trae Young, and then we're going to go to the finals against the Celtics. That's right. We're going to win and get back to 18. That's what we're going to do because we're going to get JJ, and JJ could teach, because, middling NBA players make great head coaches. That's just a fact. If you're a middling NBA player, like, sure, you might have had a couple of big shots, in a finals, a la the Warriors,
Tell
or
that to
say you
Darvin
were.
Ham.
Well, Darvin Ham was not a championship pedigree middling, and also Darvin Ham. There was another thing.
Detroit Pistons, Darvin Ham.
He didn't win a chip with the Pistons, did he?
I'm
I don't think he was on
pretty.
that Pistons team. I think he was with the Nuggets then, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe he was. But at any rate, JJ and us are going to win again. But I'm really upset. You guys don't know, ladies and gentlemen. I'm upset that the Celtics have won. All those people in my inbox that are Celtics fans sending me all kinds of clover leaves and other kinds of ugly things I don't want to see. I don't want to see that mess. Boo! Don't want to see none of that. I'm just so upset. You thought I was going to be upset about JJ. No, I'm upset about the Celtics.
I'm not gonna lie. I really thought you were gonna be irritated with JJ Redick. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't care
That
about
was
that. I want LeBron to stay in Los Angeles, and if that's what we need to do to keep him there, because I don't see LeBron wanting to listen to no yelling college coach, to go back to the last topic. But no, I'm upset about this. They can't even do any original celebrations. He's doing mimicking Chris Bosh and just pouring a bunch of champagne on his head like a fool. Oh, I'm so upset. Oh, I'm so upset. And then the people just upset. Oh, it's just frustrating. It's just so frustrating. And this summer, Jaylen Brown's probably going to be like piloting a rocket ship or something from Mars or something else crazy. Because he worked for NASA and all kinds of other stuff in the offseason. Do you know how frustrating it is that your rivals have people who have enough time to be working with NASA in the offseason, but also win championships? That's really frustrating. You're supposed to be too busy focusing on winning championships to be worried about space aliens and stuff. But that's what they be doing. Oh, dating pop stars like Ellie Mae.
Do your thing.
Oh,
Do your thing.
So angry, ladies and gentlemen. They gonna get. Oh, I'm just so frustrated. But no, they made the moves this offseason. Like, the moves that the Celtics made to build this team were the moves they needed to shore up the things that they had problems with. They had problems with good guards, so they went and got two defensive stalwarts. They swapped out their old guy, Marcus Smart, for Drew Holiday, and taking Drew Holiday from Milwaukee was a big problem for Milwaukee. Like, them not having that defensive dog to get them stops. Because like people, we all talk about the splashy stuff. We all talk about, oh, he scored 35, da 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 da. In the playoffs, it's not about how much you score. It's about how much you can stop that other team. And Drew showed it. Drew showed it. White showed it. All of them was getting steals and stuff. So adding White, Holiday, and Porzingis was the biggest thing that they could have possibly done. Adding all those pieces, they stretched the floor and they're all on the string with each other. They were a team this year, and they was playing basketball for real. And unfortunately, people don't play basketball no more, and it shows. So like the Mavericks couldn't do anything with them because they play 1-2 basketball. Here, I got the ball this possession, you got the ball next possession, and that's not how you win championships. You can win a summer league tournament like that. You can win your church league like that. But when we talk about high level basketball, you can't win like that. You got to have something else because real basketball players can figure out, oh, we just got to stop these two dudes because the rest of these dudes just stand around looking for layups and stuff. If we stop them, they're not going to score more than 8 points each. And that's what happened. So to me, I'm just through with them. I can't take it anymore. And I'm really upset. This couldn't happen to a worse franchise. And I'm pissed about it. I'm really pissed, ladies and gentlemen. You have no idea how frustrating it is. You have no idea.
Well, with that being said, we'll get into the main two main points that we were going to talk about today. And typically, as you guys know, if you guys don't know this, you know it now, is a lot of times we're talking about like our big topic of the show. Normally, we'll have it in our background. So as you can see here, we have two films. Both of them dropped, well, a series, let me say, in a film, both of which dropped trailers this week, and that would be Smile 2 as well as The Penguin. So for Smile 2, if you guys have not seen it, of course it deals with a curse that causes folks to smile, and of course there are other implications to that of how it spreads and how it gets from person to person. And then of course on the other side we have The Penguin, which is a continuation of the story established in the Batman, the Matt Reeves Batman film, and the implications of the Penguin, expanding his influence in the underworld following the events of the Batman. Now, Spillman, I mean, we could dive into either. Now, did you have a chance to see? Did you see the original Smile
I
film?
did not see the original Smile film, but watching this this trailer was exhilarating and scary. Like it seems like the lady is spiraling into a schizophrenic fit. It seems like she's going off her rails. Everybody's smiling at her. It seems like everything's crazy. So to me, it looks crazy. It looks like a good movie. It seems like they're using new actors, and I like that there's not like a big monster type thing that's going to come and get them.
So here's the thing.
Oh, there is a monster.
I,
Oh,
I'm not going to spoil it, but I will say this: for those who have never seen Smile, first off, go see it. What's wrong with you? Go see it. It's really good. But the thing that I do like here, so the first film plays with what's there and what's not there because our main character is a psychiatrist. And so, you have that idea of mental illness that is introduced in the first film. But the thing that I like about this one is how do you, based off of what you established in the first film, how do you expand upon that, or how do you change or escalate what you established in the first film? In the first film, as I said, the person is a psychiatrist, so you have that whole component of, you know, are they crazy? Are they not crazy? Do they really see, what's going on here? And shout out, hey Michael, how you doing, man? But
what's up,
yeah,
Mike?
um, so what is what they're seeing really there, or is it really not there? So you have that component. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. Just go check it out. There is a lot going on. But I do like that idea of the first film, we have psychiatry at play. The second film, we have a pop star. And what an interesting setup to have the curse spreading among what it appears to be the fans. And now that you have the, while you had the element of, patients and their psychiatrists in the first film, what what better way to escalate that than having their, numerous fans with this same curse all at once. Like the first film is very creepy, and how it ends up, concluding is very creepy. But based off of that and what they established in that first film, I'm super excited about, this film, and what the possibilities and what the potential is, because, just as you said, it seems like the pop star is losing her mind, and there's always, at least in the original film, there's always been that backdrop or that component of the theme of mental illness. But there is something else at play too, which I won't spoil. I'll let you see the first film, and for those who haven't seen it, I'll let you guys see it. But I just think that it's a brilliant move to still be able to carry on the story. And based on the setting and the setup that you have, it provides a fresh lens, it provides a fresh angle to what you've established in the first film. And it also escalates it because now it can be among fans. It can be it can be at the concert with millions upon millions of fans all under the same curse. That's insane.
It's
Like
crazy.
that's a obvious way to be able to escalate it from the confined story that you have in the first film. So
And actually taking it from this lens of a pop star on top of the world at the top of her game, seeming to lose her life, is a turn that I don't remember ever hearing. That's the plot of a horror movie. Usually, horror movies happen in isolated incidences, you and six other people maybe. But the idea that there's an entity trying to get you and you're one of the most famous people in the world, but it also
there's
could
nowhere
just
you
be
can
up
hide.
here. There's
Yeah, there's
nowhere you
nowhere
can
you can
hide.
hide.
That's like such an innovative look at this type of a genre of film. Maybe it's an entity that's doing it to you. I don't know because I haven't seen the original movie. But that concept in and of itself is very refreshing to me, and it's something that, even though this is a sequel, seems like a new idea. Um, that's fresh, and I like that they are taking it more into the real world, because like we always like see these horror movies, but it's like the house at the end of the road or something else that's scary in that way. But we don't really explore how truly frightening fame can be, because we all you don't realize how much you read about it, but it's crazy people try to break into famous people's house all the time, like all the time. Crazy
And
people
then
like
that's
breaking into famous people's houses.
and I was gonna say that's what's so brilliant about this is because so many times when it comes to fandom anyway, fans can be crazy anyway. So to kind of add the extra layer of the curse being on top of that, it's very easy to have to have everything get dismissed as just a consequence of stardom, of celebrity, versus there actually being something that's going on. So it's a very interesting dynamic. But I will say, if this film, does well just like the original one does, now that you've escalated it to this degree, what new setting can you do to kind of refresh it again? Because the only setting that I can think of outside of being a pop star where this kind of curse would make sense would be politics, actually. Like someone running for office, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Like that would be interesting.
I feel
Um,
like that's so interesting, but it also bleeds into real life, so they probably would never do it, because like you got the Hinckleys who like the Hinckleys who famously attempted to take out Reagan, and he said, "Oh, it's because I was watching that movie Taxi Driver, and that's what he does in the movie Taxi Driver. So why wouldn't I do it? I'm trying to impress Jodie Foster," which is what a crazy thing. It's just like, what are you talking about, sir? So that's truly a scary thing. That lack. Who would have thought? Right, right. Thank you, Mike. But who would have thought that? Like, I'm happy that they're just trying to try out new things, not the formulaic. oh, we're some high school seniors on the peak of adulthood, but we're still children. So you have a level of, oh, I feel sorry for these people because they're children and they're going to get something bad happen to them by an entity or a monster of some sort. But this is a good change of pace, and it also is a good allegory for the fanatic culture we have. You know, everybody has a hive now or a group of fans who you can commend as your minions. You know, just speaking of what I was talking about at the beginning of the show, with the rap battle that's been going on recently, it's like they're talking about like bots and people get their minions on up.
Oh, you lost
And
Spillman. Oh, okay.
there we go. Sorry about that. Hold on.
No, you're fine.
Turn my headphones back. All
Gotcha.
right, there you go. Am I
Yeah,
back?
yeah, you're
Am
good.
I
You're good. Yeah, you're good. Lost you there for a second again.
yeah, getting all the calls. I just think that this is a very innovative and fresh idea. And one thing that we have said on this podcast since the beginning, since I've been on here, is we like new ideas. We want to see the authors and the creatives explore new point of views with these stories because it's a scary movie. It's supposed to be scary, but how do you make a new scary movie? So that's just interesting to me.
Yeah, for sure. And in talking about the Penguin, um, it is I am looking forward to this series. Um, I'm hopelessly optimistic because I did it did enjoy Matt Reeves's the Batman.
You like
However,
Twilight Batman, Brandon? That's right. Call it what it's supposed to
the
be called.
film the film
Twilight
overall
Batman.
the film overall was good. And shout out, yeah, what's his name was did a good job.
Twilight Batman. That's right. He did
Robert
better
Pattinson
than
did all right
Batfleck.
job as Batman. But I will say this is I feel like they are playing it can in some circumstances be a dangerous game because while the character that Colin Farrell played, that character of the Penguin that he brought to life, which was remarkable, and what he was able to do through the makeup and through all the prosthetics that he was provided for that character, because I'll be honest, I remember when they were first promoting the film, I was like, that's Colin Farrell. Like, it was he very much disappeared into that role. Is now that you have this movie universe, you don't want to spread yourself too thin by having a connected series. There have been very few times where a TV series that is, book ending a movie works, where it feels kind of like it feels kind of like a stretch where you're like, okay, if they're doing this spin-off TV series, where's the main draw that we had, that helped, bring about the series in the first place? Good example of that I can think of is Agents of Shield, right? We had the Avengers, then we had Agents of Shield. There was some, initial excitement, but after a while it kind of dried out because at some point people were saying, okay, where are the Avengers? Yeah, it's cool that we have the agents in here, and yeah, it is called Agents of Shield, but if it's in the world of the Avengers, why didn't the Avengers take care of that? Why did the agents have to take care of that? Same thing happens in thankfully it didn't happen, and this is a testament to the writing. The same thing didn't happen in what is it, Peacemaker, because you had the Suicide Squad, and then you had his story continue after that. That was probably the rare instance where, like, it still felt like it was in the world of the Suicide Squad and of those DC characters, but it was something that was unique enough where it was something that Peacemaker could tackle, and you still bought the fact that it didn't require the Justice League to hop in. Of course, they made a meta joke about it at the end where they came in at the last minute, but it was something that was small enough of a story that Peacemaker could tackle by himself, but something important enough or had stakes high enough that it warranted it being something that needed a whole series to tell, if that makes sense.
That
So
makes sense.
if we're talking about Penguin, right, it is a good opportunity to be able to talk about his rise in the underworld, but I just hope that it doesn't become. I hope that there is an overall yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Writing is key. I just hope that there is an overall end game to what they're trying to do. I hope it's not a situation of, oh, let's see how this does. Oh, okay, people are responding to this. Let's do another season of the Penguin. No, like if you're going to do this story, tell it within this mini and tell it within a mini series and be done with it and not do any other series, especially if you're trying to continue a movie franchise. Because I'm telling you, if you try to get greedy and do additional seasons after this, after this first season, because folks are responding to it, you're going to run the danger of people being tired not only of the Penguin, they're going to get frustrated with the fact that Batman is not showing up, because I guarantee you if it's called the Penguin, it's just going to be the Penguin and
We need to see Twilight Batman. That's
and
right.
ancillary things that are happening in the underworld versus actually having the character that brought about the series in the first place, and is actually going to bring undue damage to the overall movie franchise, because people are going to be so irritated with the series that they're going to start being irritated with the franchise overall, which, let's be honest, the Penguins is a part of this franchise. It's basically the Batman 2.5, right? So until we get the next Batman entry, so we'll see. What are your thoughts?
I like Twilight Batman. I like that they've done what they've done with the Joker. I think that of the movie franchises we're talking about, I think that comparing Avengers to a standalone Batman movie is a little bit not fair to them, because the Avengers is, they're not street level bad guys. So, like, the Avengers don't care about people who's sticking people up and stuff. That's not what they do. They're fighting Earth threats. So to have a TV show that doesn't really follow an Earth threat every week gets kind of weird. But like, because Batman is a guy who's fighting the crime in the city every week, every day, and this is one of his rogues. Seeing maybe how the Penguin gets new drug shipments in, or how he makes money off of illegal gambling. That could be a very interesting topic for a TV show, a la the Daredevil shows and the other street level Marvel shows that was on Netflix that really popular. And also, if you look at like how the John Cena show,
Peacemaker.
the Peacemaker show, that was a street level show where it's like, all right, Peacemaker is a guy who's on the street level. Sure, he's bumped up. It's kind of like if your friend was a semi-professional athlete. Like, sure, he might play with LeBron once in a while, but he still got to do shifts at the other place he's doing shifts at. So, like, seeing that navigation of that part of life for them is an interesting thing, and it's a character study type thing more so than just, oh, we're fighting this world beating entity that we have to fight, otherwise the world isn't going to be saved, which a lot of the Avengers movies are. So taking a TV show and episodically making it where it's not something that ties directly into the next movie can be boring. And obviously,
But
yeah,
I was gonna say, but when we're talking about Batman, and we can both agree to this, yes, it is a Earth-based character, right? But when we're talking about Batman, there are rogues that are really over the top.
yeah,
Like we have the Joker, we have Mr. Freeze, we have Poison Ivy. Like we have a lot of these like quote unquote meta humans, and that really hasn't been introduced in this world that has been established thus far. So that's what I'm saying. Like if you're going to do, I agree with what you're saying to a point of, I like the idea of really delving deep into the inner workings of the Penguins, criminal organization. But I just feel like if you continue to do multiple seasons of that, you run the danger of it. being stretched too thin. And then you start coming across continuity issues because you start getting greedy about, bringing in different characters. And then if this season is successful, deciding to do another show on another, rogues character in that same universe, doing it, in Arkham Asylum with the Joker that they introduced in this universe. Like, I just feel like, do by all means do the show. It is an interesting concept, but know when to bookend it, know when to end it,
Yeah, for
versus
sure.
allowing it to be spread too thin. Yeah, I know, right? We want to see the protagonist. I guess to answer your question, Michael, I feel like the reason why we're seeing more of that is I feel like people have this weird curiosity with what makes people tick and what goes into the thought process of people, I guess, going into those paths, those career choices, going into those choices that they have, be it criminal or otherwise. And I mean, a good example of that is, I know, we have a whole channel dedicated to, the crazy things that people do, and that being investigation discovery. Like, we have a whole channel dedicated to that. And everybody, folks that I know, whether it's, older relatives, and I'm sure you have, Spillman. I know so many folks that watch investigation discovery all day. And I think it just goes back to that idea of people just have a weird fascination with, what makes people tick, and what causes people to go in down those paths that are so, that are so, like, crazy or dangerous or horrible. So I think that plays into that idea, unfortunately. And then, so oftentimes with a lot of the hero characters that you have, there isn't there was a time when we had a lot of gray with a lot of those characters, but these days I feel like it's pretty cut and dry. And so, in order to get a to be able to get characters that are more complex and more three-dimensional, a lot of our villains have become more fascinating than our heroes, unfortunately. So, but any last thoughts?
I'll just chalk it up to main character energy, Michael. I think that people just got main character energy, and it's just like some of the some also the amplification of all of these media products. They need to come out with something, um, you know, especially with how formulaic and the Marvel universe is pumping out a new show every 3 months. It feels like it's a new show every 3 months. So DC has been behind for a decade. They've been behind for a decade. They've tried so many times to get their properties off of the ground. They've been hot. They've been poaching a lot of people from the Marvel universe, which they've done in the other medium of comic books for years. So they're just trying to make sure that they stay on top. They've got all these IPs that they've got to publish, because at this point it's not paying for an IP but making money off of it. So we'll see. I think that's really it. To
Yeah, for
win
sure.
this, yeah, for sure. Your good guy is my bad guy. Your freedom fighter is my terrorist. Your rebel alliance is a terrorist organization. Who knows? It was more than Darth Vader on the Death Star. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's all we really got for this one.
Yeah, yeah. So that's going to wrap it up for this edition of This Week in Pop Culture. I appreciate all of you guys watching in on the show live this morning. Just to give you guys a reminder that if you guys enjoy a lot of the content that we do here, of course, we have our YouTube channel. Make sure you throw those thumbs up and those comments, even if you're watching after the fact. But also know that we have stars that you can send over to the show via Facebook as well. If you're watching it via Facebook Live, we do have that availability where you could send stars our way if you really enjoy, a lot of the content that we do here on a regular basis. But that being said, I'm going to punt it over to you, Spillman. Tell folks where they can find you, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you can find me at Truly Spill on Instagram. Again, we're sad that the Celtics won their 18th championship. I'm really upset about that. It's rainy clouds and all that. I don't know. It's going to take me a while to get over this, ladies and gentlemen. But just check us out there. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share it with your friends and family. Tell your mom about the pod. We do great things over here and continue to support us.
Cool beans. Yeah. So once again, I am your host, Brandon Choi, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT on X and Brandon Choi _ENT on Instagram. That being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there. And of course, see y'all soon. Bye, guys.